further I go on this path, the more I realize just how deep sex really is. We're so used to thinking of it as something so casual. We live in this age of casual sex. And women, women have become so casual about sex. Not to mention men. I mean, men, we typically find it easier to shoot our load and walk away. But when I see women of this day and age who just treat it like it's nothing, it's like, how did that happen? How can a woman allow herself to be spiritually penetrated and just walk away after an encounter? It's crazy. And I'm finding more and more that the journey of sexual alchemy with my wife is excavating parts of my soul, like digging up parts of my soul that I was never able to access by myself. Just yesterday, I found myself breaking down and weeping in front of her. Something that I've never done before. And it was like I got to this point where I had such an intense craving, such a strong, intense craving that I couldn't satisfy. And it got beyond the point of desire. It got to the point of anger, rage, deep frustration. And then when I kept letting go of the frustration, I was just left with like depression, just pure depression, empty feeling of just absolute worthlessness. That's what was behind this intense lust which I'd been feeling. It was a feeling of absolute worthlessness. And I was able to face that and purge that through bitter tears in the presence of my woman. Now, we've been taught by Red Pill, by the wisdom of this age, that a man should never show emotion with his woman. But I happen to find that one of the most profoundly healing experiences that I've had in a long time. And so I want you to realize that as we step into this domain of sexual alchemy, we leave behind the vows of celibacy and the, semen retention hard mode and all this. We kind of step into a new dimension. Now we're dancing with the feminine directly. I want you to realize that this takes you much deeper, at least for me, much deeper than you can go by yourself. So with that being said, let's continue our reading of The Perfect Matrimony by Samael Aun Weor. We're up to chapter 6, which is suprasexuality. Suprasexuality is the result of sexual transmutation. Christ, Buddha, Dante, Zoroaster, Muhammad, Hermes, Quetzalcoatl, and many other great masters were suprasexual. In the study of animal life, we find many interesting things. If we cut a snake in half, we can be sure that it has the power to regenerate. It is able to develop a new half with all the organs of the lost half. Most sea and earthworms also have the power of constant regeneration. The small lizard can regenerate its tail, and the human organism its skin. The power of regeneration is absolutely sexual. Man has the power to recreate himself. Man is able to create within himself a Superman. This is possible only using the sexual power wisely. We can recreate ourselves as authentic supermen. This is only possible with sexual transmutation. In the union of the phallus, arid, the uterus, is found the key of all power. The important thing is that the couples learn how to retire from the sexual act before the spasm, before the seminal loss. One must not spill the semen, neither within the uterus nor without, nor to the side, nor anywhere. Human life in itself has no meaning. To be born, to grow, to work hard, to live, to reproduce like an animal, and then to die. This is really a chain of torments which man carries entangled in the soul. If this is life, then it is not worth living. Fortunately, we carry in our sexual gland seed, the grain. From this seed, from the grain, the Superman can be born, the Adam Christ, the golden child of sexual alchemy. For this, life is worth living. The path is sexual transmutation. Uranus has a sexual cycle of 84 years. Uranus is the only planet that directs its poles towards the sun. Think about that for a second. The only planet that directs its poles towards the sun. Both of its poles. The two poles of Uranus correspond to the two aspects, masculine and feminine. These two phases alternate in equal periods of 42 years. The alternating stimuli of the two poles of Uranus govern all the sexual history of human evolution. I don't know about you, but this is profound knowledge bombs being dropped here. Periods in which women undress to display their bodies alternate with periods in which men adorn themselves. Periods of female predominance alternate with periods of intrepid gentlemen. Intrepid, I think of fearless, bold, courageous, real men, strong, fearless men, blazing new trails, innovating. Now, think about what he's just said. These periods alternate back and forth, masculine and feminine. We are currently in a feminine age, brothers. It started with, I would say, the emerging of the Aquarian Age, which Samael believes was in the 1960s. Think about the 1960s, the counterculture, the hippie revolution, the sexual revolution, contraception, new gender roles being created, new sexual dynamics being created. The disillusion of masculinity started in the 60s. The rise of the feminine started in the 60s. Suddenly women felt bold, empowered, liberated to act out some of their more debaucherous sides. And we've come into this age now where it is offensive to offend a woman. It is deeply offensive to offend a woman, but it is comical to offend and denigrate and disrespect a man. You know it's true. That's the age we're living in. The age of pornography and OnlyFans. OnlyFans models getting paid more than NBA players. The feminine elevated above the masculine. This is governed by the planet Uranus, the two alternating poles. We are living in an energetic universe, and we are influenced by the astrological luminaries. This is the history of the centuries. The Superman is not the result of evolution. The Superman is born of the seed. The Superman is the result of a tremendous revolution of consciousness. The Superman is the Son of Man, mentioned by Christ. The Superman is Adam Christ. Through Adam, all men fell, descended down into the root chakra, descended out of the fourth dimension into the third dimension where we were enslaved by matter. We became dominated by the physical rather than us being in our true office, dominating the physical as God commanded. You shall have dominion over all of the animals and all of the creatures of the earth. We dropped down to a state where we now had to fight for our right to survive. That was the fall of man. And it happened through sex. We need to return to the point of departure, sex, and regenerate ourselves. Man is a living seed. The seed, the grain must exert itself to germinate the Superman. This is not evolution. This is a tremendous revolution of consciousness. With just reason, Christ said, "And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up." The Son of Man, the sexual energy which descended into the deepest part of the earth, into the root, must be lifted up. The very act of lifting up the Son of Man is the act of resurrecting the Christ. With sexual transmutation, we can completely regenerate ourselves. The age of sexual ecstasy is always preceded by the age of sexual pleasure. I think by definition that means we are about to step into the age of sexual ecstasy. The same energy that produces sexual pleasure when it is transmuted then produces ecstasy. Now, I don't know about you, but I would take ecstasy over pleasure any day of the week. The age of mystical ecstasy begins when the age of sexual pleasure ends. Just as one is able to transplant a vegetable, to move a plant from one pot to another, so also one must transplant the sexual energy, taking it from the terrestrial plane and passing it, transplanting it to the Adam Christ. In reaching these heights, the Master has self-realized absolutely. From that moment, we have achieved continuous ecstasy. The supreme illumination of the great Hierophants. The Superman is as different from man as the lightning is from the black cloud. The lightning comes from the cloud, but it is not the cloud. The lightning is the Superman. The cloud is man. Sexual regeneration puts into activity the powers that we had in Eden. We lost those powers when we fell into animal generation. We reconquer those powers when we regenerate ourselves. Brothers, it doesn't get much plainer than that. When we fell in Eden, we were channeling our power into generation, into animal generation. There's two choices. We can generate offspring through the loins, through the sexual act. Or we can regenerate our soul and ascend. You can go down or you can go up. It's not to say you can't have offspring as a person who is ascending, as a man who is self-realizing. You certainly can. As we saw in the last video, through immaculate conception, the release of a single spermatozoa is all that's needed. You never need to ejaculate. You never need to release the seed. The grandeur and majesty of the Superman is tremendous. Really, the Superman shines for a moment in the night of the centuries and then disappears. He becomes invisible to man. So folks, that is it for chapter 6. That was just a few selected readings from the chapter that I found to be very profound. I like what he says there in the end, that the Superman shines for a moment in the night of the centuries and then disappears. Does that not sound to you like the path of the Bodhisattva? The being who reaches liberation, who reaches enlightenment, then hangs around for a certain time to help as many as he can. Jesus Christ, for example, the Buddha. Before he exits this plane, before he takes his leave. Because, as you guys probably well know, this is the clown show. This is the false reality. This is the matrix. And so why hang around longer than you need to? Learn your lessons, get it done, become a Superman, get out of here. So brothers, I hope you're taking meaning from this. I hope you're drinking in some of the richness of what's being shared here, because this is truly the key. This is truly the key. Now, if you would like to dive deeper into this work, if you would like to release some of the blockages you have around sex, perhaps it's shame, perhaps it is guilt, fear, perhaps it's a lack of trust in yourself to fully open up this aspect of your divinity. Because keep in mind, your level of sexual power relates exactly to your level of attractiveness to the universe, to money, to opportunities, to stepping into your destiny. So if you've got a block around your root chakra, if you've got a block around your sexual power, like I've had for most of my life, due to programming, due to the way I was taught to be, then that block is going to hold you back from your destiny. If you want to work with me to remove that block, to allow the full power to flow, let's do it. The link is below. We can work together. We can clear this stuff out of your life so that you can really step into your power. Take the lock off. Now, if you want to get a condensed form of this book, which I'm reading, The Perfect Matrimony, I have rewritten my own version in my own words from my own experience. It is called God Mode. Raising the Fiery Serpent. That's a short read. You can read that in a couple of hours. And it just condenses all of this information. The link is below. So brothers, I would love to hear your feedback. I'd love to hear from any of you practicing sexual alchemy with your wife, with your priestess. I'd love to hear any questions. Post them below. And I'll see you in the next one.